Welcome to the Explainer. So, if you're constantly struggling to remember things you literally just learned, well, you're probably going to be relieved to hear that your intelligence is absolutely not the problem here. Your memory is likely completely fine. The real issue? It's your technique. You're most likely just learning the wrong way. Okay, let's dive into this. When you learn something today and completely forget it by tomorrow, it doesn't mean you aren't smart. It simply means you don't fully understand how your brain stores data. We all want to hold on to the valuable information we consume, right? But our brains have a very specific filtering process. Think of it kind of like a ruthless bouncer at a nightclub, immediately kicking out any information it thinks is unimportant just to make room for the VIPs. I mean, has this incredibly frustrating scenario ever happened to you? You're consuming an explainer, just like this one, or maybe you're reading a brilliant book. And while you're in it, everything makes total sense. You're nodding along, thinking, okay, yeah, I've got this. But then, a few days later, a friend asks you about that exact topic and nothing. Your mind just goes completely, embarrassingly blank. The only thing you can actually recall about that life-changing book is what, the color of the cover? Well, today, we're going to fix that. Here's our roadmap for how we'll do it. First, the illusion of learning. Then, how to make your brain work. Next, timing and taking action, followed by the emotional connection. And finally, we'll uncover the absolute biggest learning mistake you can make. All right, starting off with section 1, the illusion of learning and the difference between understanding versus learning. So here's the core conflict we really have to address. Understanding and learning are not the same thing at all. See, the human brain requires repetition, connection, emotion, and practice. Without those 4 pillars, the information you take in just sits in your short-term memory and then slowly fades into nothingness. And that is exactly where the illusion lies. Understanding is easy. It's passive. When you watch someone else explain something, the information is already perfectly prepared for you. But learning is active. Real learning only happens when your brain can retrieve and actually use that information entirely without help. Moving right along to section 2, make your brain work. Specifically, we'll look at active recall and connecting information. If you actually want to move from passive understanding to active learning, you just can't be a passive viewer anymore. You have to force your mind to do the heavy lifting. So method 1 is active recall. When you're watching an educational explainer, don't just let it play all the way to the end. Pause it. After a few minutes, stop and ask yourself, what did I just learn? How would I explain this to a child? And where can I use this in real life? These questions literally force your mind to retrieve the information instead of just comfortably receiving it. Think about this quote. Reading information is like pouring sand on the ground, but trying to remember it is like pouring concrete over that sand. It sets it in stone. Seriously, if you can't explain a concept in your own words right after closing an explainer, you haven't actually learned it. It just feels familiar to you. And this brilliantly illustrates method 2, which is connecting new information. You see, your brain works like a network, a lot like your smartphone's storage. When your phone storage is totally full and scattered, it really struggles to save new files. Your brain is exactly the same way. It needs connections to cement a memory. So if you learn a new English word, don't just memorize the dry dictionary definition. Put that word into a weird, funny story. Connect it to an image. Your brain is a dynamic connection-making system, not some dusty storage box in the attic. Now for section 3, timing and taking action, breaking down spaced repetition and practical use. So method 3 is spaced repetition. And here is the exact timeline you want to follow. You learn it today, you review it 10 minutes later, then tomorrow, then in 3 days, and then in 1 week. Honestly, this is exactly like building muscle in the gym. If you go and work out for 8 agonizing hours in one single day and then don't go back for a month, you're not going to build any strength. But small, regular reviews, hitting that information right as your brain starts to forget it, that grows your memory muscle immensely. It is vastly more powerful than stressful cramming. Method 4 is all about practical use. Like we said earlier, your brain dumps useless data to save energy, kind of like a ruthless organizer throwing away things you haven't touched in a year. So you have to prove the information is actually useful by actively using it. If you're learning about money management, go write an actual budget. Learning Amazon FBA, don't just watch a tutorial, calculate the profit using a real product. Action tells your brain, hey, we need to keep this, it's important. Which brings us to section 4, the emotional connection, making information visible in the brain. Now, this is the missing link that almost everyone ignores. Just think about why you still remember completely random, specific moments from your childhood. You remember them because they're tied to emotion: fear, happiness, excitement, surprise, maybe curiosity. Emotion acts like a bright highlighter pen for your memory. To apply this, you've got to ask yourself, why does this matter? What will I lose if I don't know this? What will change in my life if I truly understand this? Let's say you're learning about healthy eating. Don't just view it as dry, boring data about vitamin C and potassium. Add real stakes to it. View it as having the physical energy to watch your kids grow up, or feeling vibrant and alive every single morning. Tying facts to real, powerful emotions makes that data highly visible and incredibly sticky to your brain. And finally, Section 5. The biggest learning mistake. Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is the total paradigm shift it requires. We have finally arrived at the ultimate mistake that holds so many smart people back. The mistake is thinking that learning means consuming. Watching, reading, listening, that is just consumption. And consumption is easy. Watching 10 educational videos a day might make you feel super productive, but it's an illusion. Real learning demands the much harder work of producing. Producing means watching just one explainer and immediately writing about it, explaining it out loud to the room, or actually applying it to your life. So, the absolutely crucial point is this: information only becomes yours when you actually use it. A truly smart person isn't the one who watches the most content or reads the most books or passively consumes the most data. A smart person is someone who actively uses what they learn to produce a real result. All right, let's rapidly lock in everything we've just covered today. To transition from a passive consumer to an active producer, just follow these 5 steps. 1. Force your brain to work with active recall. 2. Connect new information to a network of old knowledge. 3. Build that memory muscle with spaced repetition. 4. Prove it matters by actually using the information. And 5. Add emotion to make it stick. So I'm going to end with a direct challenge to you right now. As soon as this finishes, I want you to close this explainer and try to explain all 5 of these steps out loud, entirely in your own words. Don't look back at your notes, test yourself immediately. If you can do that, congratulations, your brain has already started saving the information. Get out there, stop just consuming, and start producing.